And as NATO discusses its Asia plans, here's something it must consider: China's appetite for war. Can Beijing even afford a war? I'll tell you why I ask this. The Chinese economy is on a downward spiral. Look at the latest numbers. China is on the brink of deflation. And what is deflation? Well, throughout this year, we've been talking about inflation and how much it's hurting everyone across the world. Prices are rising. What's happening in China is the very opposite of that. Deflation means prices of goods are going down. They're getting cheaper. And that should be good news, right? Well, it is for the consumers. But for the Chinese economy, it is bad news. Deflation spells trouble on a lot of fronts. The Chinese economy could grind to a halt. People could start spending less because they expect prices to come down further, so they'll hold off on big expenses. They'll wait for the prices to stabilize, and this has an impact on everything. When people spend less, the demand for goods and services declines. Businesses scale down production, they consolidate their operations, they adjust output to match the reduced demand. And this tends to have a trickle-down effect on employment. It leads to job cuts and layoffs. Such a scenario can trigger a recession, and China is at that juncture, or heading there. Now look at the data to understand deflation. In the month of June, prices of goods did not change. There was a 0% shift, meaning no change. And core inflation fell from 0.6% to 0.4%. These are early signs of deflation. Prices of staple goods have started falling in China, like pork. Pork is an essential part of the Chinese diet, and prices of pork have been declining steadily. In the month of May, they decreased by 3.2%. Then last month, in June, they dropped by more than double, more than 7%. And this situation is serious, so much so that the Chinese state has had to intervene. Last week, Beijing made an announcement. It said it will buy more pork for the state reserves. Now, this move is aimed at stabilizing prices, but it's just one small decision. It may not have a sweeping impact. The problem in China is much deeper. The country showed a strong recovery after the pandemic, but that economic rebound has now hit a wall, and Beijing is not doing enough to revive it. For weeks now, investors have demanded a stimulus, but Beijing has dragged its heels. And this is not an unprecedented demand. Back in 2009, when the world was going through a grave financial crisis, China pumped a large stimulus into the economy. This was a package worth $553 billion. $553 billion. This was China's stimulus package. It was focused on the infrastructure sector. So it has been done before. Then why is China hesitating this time? Because they don't have the money. The Chinese state is not as rich as it used to be. There is a massive pile of debt, and this pile is getting bigger. Going by one estimate from January, China's total public debt stood at almost $52 trillion. Let that figure sink in. $52 trillion. It's almost 3 times the size of China's economy. This debt is at record levels, the highest in the last 27 years at least. So Beijing faces a difficult choice. Should it pay this debt, or should it infuse more cash into the economy? The banks are already strained. Reports say non-performing loans are rising, creditors are unable to keep up with payments, and this includes government debt. So Beijing could make an intervention. More bonds could be issued. This will help raise money, also repay some of the debt. But this is a dangerous strategy. You're basically taking more loans to pay the existing loans. China is caught in this vicious cycle. But for how long can they sustain this financial circus? Any expert will tell you this approach is not sustainable. China's economic revival remains on shaky ground.